almost 30 years of life, one of the greatest lessons I learned is how to view things from the other perspectives. It's hard to do, but it's required to grow as a person. The skill can be used and applied to many things. Being a better salesperson, a better lover, and yes, even a better gamer. But I feel like a lot of times people don't like to look outside of their own viewpoints and understand where others might be coming from. And before you conservative, Republican voting Tom McDonald fans go to my comment section and say, "Yo, man, totally. Why can't anyone understand my perspective? I don't hate trans people. I just don't want them to have the same rights as me." Shut up. I hate you. I'm non-binary and I don't want you here. Turn off Ben Shapiro, go touch some grass and get educated. You aren't being victimized in a society or system because you can't be punished for your gender or your skin color. No one's calling you a bigot because you're a cis white male. People call you a bigot because you're being a bigot. And no, I will not sit here and debate the right to exist as a human being to you. Anyway, I bring up the prospects of perspective because within the Dead by Daylight community, a common chimpanzee level shit flinging fest that goes on is what side does the game and by proxy behavior tend to lean towards? Is it survivor or killer sided? Fun little game to play during this video. Where do you think I'm going with this? What side do you think I'm going to say the game leans towards at the end? I bet you can't guess. Let's start with the argument that the game is killer-sided. Well, it's simple, really. Killer perks are typically very overtuned, and what they are meant to do, they do incredibly well. Need a gen to regress? There's goes 30 plus seconds of work. Need a gen to be blocked? The length of an average chase should do the trick. I want to make all my disadvantages in chase go away. Spirit Fury, Bamboozle, Superior Anatomy? I want to know where the survivors are at all times. Well, here's 12 different flavors of info perks that never turn off. Now get out there, Tiger. You've got a lot of camping, tunneling, and bleeding out to do. On the other side, hello survivors. What flavor of bully would you like to be today? Would you like a flashlight that blinds the killer for 100 years that they can't avoid because even though the pallet break animation, the survivor wiggling out animation, and various other animation locks make them look at the fucking ground, you can still chain blind them and melt their retinas in real life? Would you like 12 different powerful loops linked together into one big infinite loop where the killer can only catch you if you make a mistake or if they're playing nurse? Oh, I got it. How about a perk build that makes you completely unhookable no matter what the killer does? Let's not also forget the slightest bit of communication makes you practically unbeatable as it shuts down half the killer perks in this game. We can make gens fly by at the drop of a hat, and if you're feeling really cheeky, crouching behind the killer makes the hook prompt disappear. For some reason. I can go on and on like this for hours. Both sides have huge amounts of arguments as to the advantages and disadvantages of their side or the other. But which side does the game favor? Which side does behavior sit down in their meetings and decide what they're going to make more powerful, what they're going to give into? The answer, viewer, is fucking neither. Oh, what a surprise. Kaiser's on the neutral side in a Dead by Daylight video. Sound the alarms and check for hell freezing over. But stick with me, viewer. There's a lot more to this. You see, the game, objectively speaking, is fairly balanced with some tweaks needed here or there. But subjectively, well, that's up to you and your perspective. See, there was a point in my ramblings at the beginning of this video. See, the thing is, I want to roll my eyes so far back in my head that I can count the wrinkles on my massive brain whenever I see someone say, "This game is X-sided, the devs only care about X mains," because it starts to wear on me a little bit. Because from an objective standpoint, a factual, just looking at raw data, the devs do everything they can to bring a fair and fun balance to the game. When things are too strong or too weak, they try and fix it. They miss the mark sometimes, and to be honest, quite few decisions do feel more or less like they're looking at an Excel spreadsheet as opposed to listening to legit user data. But I digress. See, what's subjectively more fun and fair to you clouds your ability to see the decisions from an objective health of the game. I get it. I was the same way. I was a killer purist when I first started playing back in October. I never even thought about playing Survivor. In fact, I didn't play Survivor for the first 400 hours of playtime. I refused to do it. And you know what? I called this game Survivor-sided for the longest time. I constantly talked about how the game favors survivors and how it wasn't fair, and I hated it. And honestly, from my subjective perspective, I still think that, as evident by the fact that I've been playing Survivor more and more. Killer is stressful, man. I got to keep track of 4 people, what 4 perks they have, where they were last seen. I got to keep track of who I hooked, when, and how many times, lest I get called a tunneler. I got to make sure I make a conscious effort to leave an area, lest I get called a camper. If I stray too far from a down person, trying to make sure I don't get pallet stunned or flashlight blinded, I might get yelled at and told to kill myself and uninstall the game for slugging. I need to keep track of gen count and what gens are at what progress. And even if you don't take winning into account, I still have to keep track of everything because as a streamer, I have to avoid trolls and do all that BS and be entertaining on top of that. I can never just turn my brain off and relax as Killer. As Survivor, I find Gen, I hold M1. I hear Terror Radius, I hold W. I don't have to keep track of 30,000 things, and I get to talk to chat and have a great time. For you, there's going to be reasons why you might play one side over the other, but it is incredibly apparent nobody ever thinks about these kind of things outside of their own viewpoints. It's insane to me how many people who played Killer one time 4 years ago are like, well, I played Killer and I didn't sit on a hook after all the gens were done. Hell, I saw a Spook and Jukes video the other day where a player told a killer to jump off a bridge because the killer camped and hooked after gens were done. And when it was pointed out, this fucking loser goes, well, I main Killer and I don't do that. And like, I don't know, man, good for you, I guess. I know some Killer mains who actively go out of their way to not tunnel. Like if they see the same person they just hooked, they'll actually ignore them, throw the game and walk away. But just because you have fun and play in a certain way doesn't mean everyone else is required to do the same. But returning to the point of this video and what sided the game is supposedly leans towards, I know for a fact, 100%, there's gonna be at least a couple of comments from people who will sit through this entire video, actually scratch that. They'll probably just kind of space out around the halfway mark, not listen to a damn thing I say, and then try to tell me why objectively I'm wrong and the game is actually blank-sided. And the reason for that is that it's far easier to only look at game decisions, gameplay, and game balance from your own viewpoints. Do you guys remember my harsh truth video where I pointed out that people would rather blame the world for them losing over taking responsibility for their own actions? Playing victim is easy. It's far harder to sit back and say that the devs are trying their best, however misguided you might think they are. They don't want you to leave the game. They don't hate their player base. That's stupid. There's no money to be made that way. But that's the only justification people can come up with for why things they want to be in the game aren't in the game, or why things that they don't want to happen might happen. Look at the healing changes. Obviously, they hate survivors. They only listen to killer mains, the survivor mains cry. No, look at how they got every gen regression perk. They obviously hate killer mains and only listen to survivor mains cry, the killer mains whine. I've got a crazy idea. Stop crying for 3 seconds and look at every nerf that's been done. See how many things are targeted to both sides equally. Look at all the buffs and see how they're trying to fix things. I have a whole series on this channel about fixing problems with the game. And you know what? If I exclusively did that series, I would never run out of things to talk about. Not because the game is unbalanced or unfair or any of these things, but because live service game balance is a never-ending uphill battle. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. There is never going to be, even if they never added another character, another perk, another map, for the next 3 years, they would consistently be having to change things. Because despite what people like to tell you, despite all of the balance experts out there, how they like to sit there and say, there is never all they need to do is, and all of a sudden that's a magic band-aid fix on the multiple problems that might come with this kind of game. I saw a Reddit thread the other day where somebody was talking about how behavior doesn't care, but it's so easy to recognize that they do. The Skull Merchant has been changed twice since her PTB showing in order to try to make the game more fun and more fair for the player base. There's been countless amounts of changes because the devs do care about what you have to say. It's just that it's very difficult to listen to everybody, because just because somebody is very loud and very upfront with the things that they are saying, it doesn't mean that they're correct. And yes, I know, before you comment, that can apply to me as well. Instead of fighting over what side has it worse and who the devs hate more, maybe realize that things are never going to be sunshines and rainbows, and that it's very difficult. Put yourselves in the perspectives and the shoes of the development team. Sit back and think for a minute how it must feel to sit there and look at hundreds of thousands of voices and you have to pick which of the voices you're going to listen to and take into account. Imagine how irritating it must be to have a group of people on this side screaming that they want this nerfed, and then a group of people on this side screaming, don't nerf that, that's a terrible idea. Then you have a group of people going over here, forget what they're talking about, you need to buff this. And then you have a group of people over here, oh my God, that's so stupid, forget buffing that, forget nerfing those, why aren't we getting this feature? When are we getting that feature? Why won't you change this? Why won't you add that to the game? You have to listen to all of these voices, and then you have to try to make changes that make everyone happy, and that's just not possible, and it's very, very stressful. Or just sit there and keep pretending like your perspective and your word is law. I don't know, I can't tell you what to do, I'm not your father. Thank you for watching. I feel like I lost track halfway through this video, but I wanted to make sure I covered all my bases. I should have a new video on Ghostface out next week. I finished up my research and played around an additional 40 games with him, so I just got to write up the script and record and edit. Anyway, if you want to join me live, make sure you check out my Twitch in the description. And hey, I just released some new Dead by Daylight merch line around my silly names I give to the Dead by Daylight maps. So if you're interested in that, the links are also in the description. Anyway, have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next one. Hey guys, Future Kaiser here. Before we get into the end screen with the links and the doobly-doos and stuff like that, I just wanted to show you the in-game chat for the background footage that went on today. Consider this like a little bonus, some laughter after my very long tangent. It was just really, really funny, and I wanted to share it with you guys. So it's about a minute and a half. Enjoy, and I'll see you guys next week. Thanks.